Ranking Member, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. Let me first start with Secretary Sweeney. Secretary, Haskell University, you mentioned in your testimony, will receive forward funding. I think that's good news. I want to highlight an issue that we've had a desire to work with Haskell on for a long time, several years. Haskell cannot establish an endowment. And in my conversations with folks across the country, there's a recognition of the value of Haskell and a willingness to contribute dollars toward an endowment that would help Haskell and its students. How can we attract private support for tribal colleges and universities and help supplement the federal dollars? And again, we understand the law does not currently allow them to have an endowment or a foundation.
So thank you for your question. I'm actually traveling to Haskell tomorrow to provide the commencement address on Friday. So I'm very, very excited.
We welcome you to Kansas.
Thank you. Well, I need to first understand why they are not able to establish an endowment. And if there is a lack of authorization, that certainly is a different conversation. Outside of that, if we are moving towards authorizing Haskell to set up an endowment, then Indian Affairs can serve as a conduit between the philanthropic sector and our Haskell University to start those discussions on what an effective endowment would look like.
Well, Secretary, I thank you for that answer, and I would encourage you if you can provide some leadership on this issue. It's been a topic of conversation in Indian country for a long time, but very few concrete steps taken to accomplish the goal. And please consider me an ally in that effort. So I'd welcome your report back, and perhaps this is something that you can explore in your time in Kansas as soon as you figure out what. I've given graduation speeches. The challenge is that no one's listening. I hope, at least in my case, I hope you fare better than me.
Thank you.
Admiral, a question I'd like to raise with you on June the 6th, the Mission Act. We're talking about Department of Veterans Affairs now. The Mission Act will become effective, and it allows veterans across the country to access care outside the VA system when it's in the best interest of that veteran. And my question to you is there any coordination between the Bureau of Indian Affairs and tribal country, as well as the Department of Veterans Affairs, in making certain that this provision that Indian Americans who are veterans can access care closer to home because it's in their best interest or because they need specialized care and treatment? My question in general is there not a way that we can put some more resources into Indian health care, utilizing the VA programs, now particularly that it's not necessary to go? In fact, you could utilize a Bureau of Indian Affairs health care facility and perhaps be compensated by the VA for doing so. Do you know this story, and is there any plans in the works that would be helpful to health care for veteran Indians?
Thank you for the question, Senator Moran. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I had connections to Kansas. I was the Haskell CEO for about 3 or 4 years, so appreciated my time in Kansas.
Thank you very much. We never understand when I meet somebody who lived in Kansas why they no longer live there. But and Admiral, there is not a lot of water in our state, except at the moment it's flooding.
Understand. We've been in close contact with the VA and with BIA as it relates to the Mission Act, and we've had ongoing communications. Your idea of working having the veterans come into the clinics and get services. We've actually been doing those things. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, we have third-party resources, which include Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance. But the other piece that's actively gaining ground is VA reimbursements. So we've seen a dramatic increase of reimbursements. We are currently engaged with
So the VA can reimburse?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And we've seen those numbers continue to grow over time as our partnerships continue to increase. We've not only engaged with them on those activities, we've been engaged with them with our electronic health record, trying to learn from their lessons learned as implementing the EHR.
If you discover any difficulties, I'd be willing to assist in any way I can in dealing with the Department of Veterans Affairs to bring the two together.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Admiral. And just a brief comment, perhaps, President Keel. With the proposed increases in the Department of Justice funding for tribal programs, would you wish to highlight anything for me? I chair the Appropriations Subcommittee that includes the Department of Justice. Anything that I should know in that regard?
Thank you, Senator Moran. Anything that we can get in the way of that will help tribal courts and tribal policing in tribal jurisdictions is a great help. But we need those resources. When you look at the Crime Victims Fund, the Violence Against Women Act, all those things, Violence Against Women Act and giving jurisdiction for the tribal courts to punish those, to prosecute and punish those perpetrators, that is a great help. So yes, absolutely, we can always use that, and we'd be happy to come and work with your staff to bring you the information and statistics that we have.
Thank you. I hope that's one of the issues we don't have this time in the reality
Right.
of VAWA.
Thank you.